problem. So as you guys know, this is the CST from about 5 or 6 years ago. It is going to test 7th grade students on a variety of concepts. Some of those concepts have disappeared. I skipped questions 21 through 25. If you take a look at those questions quite quickly, you'll see there's division of exponents and multiplication of exponents. That's not something that 7th grade tests kids on anymore. So we skip that and we move forward. 26, what I'd like you guys to do is write the term absolute value down. Now, one of the things that you guys probably remember is absolute value is basically the distance away from 0. So, Roger, basically every value will be positive. It's basically identifying the numbers away from 0, meaning left of 0, negative, and right to 0 on a number line, positive. So 9 minus 5 is 4. Let me get my writing utensil going. So 9 minus 5 is 4. That's a positive 4. And 6 minus 8 is a negative 2. But once again, guys, absolute value is always positive. Now, this operation, the minus, still comes down, or it still follows. So basically what we have is 4 minus 2. And as you guys know, simple subtraction problem, 4 minus 2 is positive 2. The next question is still asking you about absolute value, and I want to create a number line to show you this. Okay, so we have 0 here, and as you guys know, these are our positive numbers. I'm going to just write a plus sign. I'm going to write negative, and what I'd like to do is kind of point out that a negative 19 is basically, let's just say this is a negative 19. This means it's 19 numbers away from 0. So the absolute value of this number is 19, and then obviously 34 numbers away from 0 on the negative side is 34, 11, and 47. So once again, you're seeing all absolute values are positive. What is the smallest value? What is going to be to the left of this number line? So all of these values are in this area, and as you guys know, the smaller numbers are furthest left on a number line. When you move to the left on a number line, they get smaller, and when you move right, they get larger. So take a look. 19, 34, 11, and 47. 11 is going to be the smallest value. Obviously, 19, 34, and 47 are larger. Absolute value is frankly something that I think is pretty easy. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look. Here's 0. If you were to plot all these numbers on a number line, here's negative 4, here's negative 18. 7's going to be on the opposite side of this number line, the positive side, and 16. So once again, to kind of show you what absolute value means, it's basically the distance away from 0. So this number is 7 away from 0, this number is 16 away from 0, this number is 4, and this number is 18. Doesn't matter whether you're going negative, left, or positive to the right. So basically what the question is asking you is which expression would be closest to 5? Okay, well, as you guys know, this is a positive 4, this is a positive 18, this is a 7, and a 16, and boys and girls, this number 4 is obviously closest to 5. Okay, I think we're going to move on to a different concept. What we'd like to do is talk to you guys about these word problems. There's going to be certain problems that maybe you're given a word that you just don't know the meaning of. The sum is basically the combination of a variety of numbers. Product, when you hear product, think of multiplication. So the sum of a number n, we don't know that number, and 14 is, when you think of is, think of equal, and then 72. So basically what they're telling you is 14 and a number, and you can see 14's here, and a number is added to one another to equal 72. Okay, so obviously B would be 72 times n equals 14. That doesn't even equal 72, so you could get rid of that. C is very close, but once again, we are combining those numbers, and then you're not combining 72 and an unknown number to equal 14. So if you were to eliminate two possible answers, it would be B and D, because as you know, it's not saying is 14. Okay. Problem number 30. These problems are going to be quite prominent on the CAASPP. I would probably say filling in a number for a variable is probably going to be about 25% of your test. If you got this down, you're probably going to be a proficient student when you're done taking the math CAASPP test. So here's what we do. We just take a look at x. This is a variable, but they're telling you the value of that variable. So that's a 4, and this y is a 3. Now, please understand, this is 4 times 3. It's not 43. When you plug in the numbers for the variable, please note that it's going to be multiplication. So basically we have 4 times 3 is 12 minus 2. And then what is x? X is 4. Okay. And so 2 times 4 is 8. And what we have now is 12 minus 8 equals 4. I think the one confusion could be that x and y, when next to one another, is 43, but that's not. Remember, when variables are next to one another, it's multiplication. And one of the things I've talked about quite over the last few weeks is do the work first, and then as you can see, don't even look at these answers. Just don't even worry about those answers. Get your answer, and the odds are, if you get your answer and you find it as a possibility, then the odds are you have done this problem correctly. Okay. 9 more problems to go. Go ahead and try problem number 31, just like I had modeled from above. So you know that m is 3, n is 5, and then just go ahead and plug in the unknown numbers to these variables. They tell you m, they tell you n. Please go ahead and do that on your notebook, and then in about 30 seconds I will plug in that equation and see if you get that correct answer. So once again, I didn't look at the answers. 4 times 3 is 12 plus 15, and I ended up getting 27. Now let's say I get 22 or I get 16, and I don't see any of those answers there. Then I would do this problem again. Once again, double checking your work, just making sure that you don't move on, and then also it's just a great way to just check to make sure that your answer that you've come up with is one of the possible answers. And as you can see, I got 27. The odds are, if I got 27 and that's one of the 4 possibilities, then odds are we did this correctly. Now, once again, the CST back in the day, it was just one correct answer. Now with the CAASPP, they may try to trick you from time to time, and there could be 2 or even 3 correct answers. So be aware. I would not overlook all the possible answers. So I'm looking for problem number 32. So this is a problem that frankly could trick a few kids. When you guys think of any positive number and you add 0 to that number, so n plus 0, it's not going to change the value of n. So 16 plus 0, n's still going to be 16. Your sum is going to be 16, right? Now, if we have 16 times 0, as you guys can see, that value changes. And so when you multiply a number by 0, yes, it will change the value of that non-zero number. What does non-zero mean? Well, it basically means any integer, a negative or a positive. So in that case, 32, you can see, would definitely change the value of that number. I'm going to move on to 33. Distributive property. I think that's one of the things that you've heard me talk about so many times, and I hope you guys have a good understanding of that. Even to the point where I've kind of said, hey, don't even really focus on associative. Please don't worry about commutative, and then the inversive or the zero property, identity property. Focus on the distributive property. What does that mean? Well, you've seen me draw these arrows with regards to parentheses so many times. What does this mean? Well, anytime you think of parentheses, think of multiplication. So 12 times x is 12x. Remember, we don't know what the x is, but x is a variable standing for a number. 12 times 4 is 48. So once again, this is called the distributive property. If you know the distributive property and you can figure out the multiplication of either a number or a value, then you're good. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of show you another thing. This is, I'm going to go ahead and just piggyback off the distributive property. And I used the word thing, I should have said example. So this is a negative sign. Think of it as a minus as well. And remember, when you multiply a negative times a negative, that makes a positive. So this n is now a positive n. And when you multiply a negative times a positive, it's going to make a negative. So ultimately, after you use the distributive property, you will have a positive n and a negative 2. It also applies to operations. You can see we have a number here outside the parentheses, and then also a sign or an operation. One of the things I want you guys to write down, when you see a parentheses, what do you need to think of? Multiplication. That's all I want you to think about. Okay? So question number 34, they are going to ask which expression is equivalent to 3x minus 3y. As you guys can see, you're going to have to take a look at the answers, and you're going to see that once again the distributive property is something that is going to be very prominent on the test. 3x minus 3y is going to be the solution. You can see the other 3 options are not correct. Once again, you cannot add the x's and y's together unless they have like terms, right? Inverse, once again, guys, I'm just going to talk to you about what an inverse is. You guys know that when you multiply fractions, sometimes to get the coefficient to be 1, we have to multiply by its inverse. Or let's say you have, for example, a variable. You often, sometimes with a decimal, you may have to get that coefficient to be 1 again. Well, inverse basically is the opposite. So let me just go ahead and show you with a fraction, numerator and denominator. What is the inverse of this number? Once again, when I think of inverse, I think of opposite. Okay? And so what we can do is we can just kind of think about, okay, we just flip the numerator and the denominator. And then as you can see, the denominator is now on the top, numerator is on the bottom. So in this case, 5 over 1, if it is multiplied by 1/5, you can see 5 over 1 and 1/5, they are inversely related. And so in that case, 35 is A. You may not see a problem like this, but I do want you to know inverse. That is something that you will need to know how to do, for example, when you are dividing 2 fractions. So let's say we have 2 over 1 divided by 3/2. Obviously, you need to know that you multiply by the inverse, and there you go. That is how you would solve a divisional fraction problem. Okay, we're almost done. Thank you for your patience. Once again, look at what I'm talking about. Distributive property pops up again and again. So once again, take a look at the values that are outside the parentheses. You can see that examples B and D are set up a little differently. And what I mean by that is you can see the numbers are to the right, but they're still outside the parentheses. So all you would do is you would do this. Okay? Well, it just so happens that A is the correct answer because you can see 4 times 3 is 12, and then 4 times 6 is 24. In this case, you can see 0 times 4 is not 12, or it's not 4. That would be 0, so C does not work. 6 times 4 is 24. 6 times 12 is 72, and that does not work out. I would, once again, if you're doing your CAASPP, just make sure, double check. Even if you get 1 correct answer, there may be 2. With the CSTs, they did not do that. It's tough, but they now make tests harder and harder for you guys. Once again, distributive property is popping up again, and frankly, you can see that these arrows that I'm trying to draw are showing the distributive property. It's multiplication. So wait, what is 8 times 100? 800. And what is 8 times 5? There you go. There's your correct answer now. A looks a little close because 8 times 105 is 840. And then obviously 800 plus 840 is 840. So yes, these two possibilities do come up with the same answer or solution.